Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw. I'm here with Jeff Adam, who is the Vice President of Sales for Down Under Answers. Now, why are we talking to Jeff? Well, Jeff and I just got back from an amazing familiarization trip that Down Under Answers did to Australia, specifically to Cairns and Brisbane. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most amazing trips I've done. It was, the only problem is it was too quick. We were really stuffed a lot of stuff in. And I want to talk about this trip. It was a wonderful trip. We had eight different travel advisors on the trip, and me, the token media guy. And so we're going to talk to Jeff about the trip, how it transpired, and also what he expects out of it, and how he thinks it benefits travel advisors. And you're going to hear all about that and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, Jeff, first of all, we should be like, we're both jet lagged to heck. I mean, we're 14-hour, but here we are. We're actually at another conference, actually at Travel Leaders. We were both, and this is sort of the end of that conference, but I did want, and we were supposed to interview in Brisbane, but my battery power ran out, so goes it. But we're here, and we're going to kind of rehash this trip. Now, how did this trip come about?
Well, the whole concept was to get agents down. We, of course, with Australia opening up, we wanted to make sure that we had key agents down there. And of course, getting yourself down there as well, Jim, to kind of report on that whole process. We had advisors from every major consortia join us. And it was all about, one, getting them to experience what Brisbane has as a gateway city. Exciting news when we were down there, of course, United Airlines offering direct flights now from Los Angeles.
Starting in October from San Francisco to Brisbane, right?
Exactly, yeah. So that's really exciting news. So the whole purpose was kind of get in there on the front of Brisbane, and it really is. Brisbane itself is an amazing gateway to Australia. In fact, just starting there with that, when you talk about Brisbane as a gateway, you look at Sydney. When you think of Australia, people think of the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, and of course, Sydney is a destination that most people, I think, will actually be drawn to. But what I enjoyed about Brisbane was that it's got a wonderful feel. It's really the true quintessential Australian country town come city. I mean, it's a city
it's a beautiful city, and it's getting built up now because it's actually going to be the host of the 2032 Olympics, which I didn't realize when I got there. I guess I should have realized that. And they are building new centers, new buildings, and it's a really beautiful little city right on the river, the Brisbane River. It has its own story bridge, which is not quite as big as the Sydney Harbour Bridge, but still lovely at night. And so that was kind of the thing. But we actually started in Cairns, right?
We did. Of course, we actually flew through to Cairns. We kind of left Brisbane till last on this one, but getting up to Cairns, we were only there for 3 nights, but we did 2 very much well. In terms of when you go to Cairns, it's all about seeing the Great Barrier Reef. So our first day, I had James out here. First day, we're diving on the Great Barrier Reef.
And I was diving even though I don't dive. They actually have a program where they'll hold on to you and let you dive with all the dive equipment. And I did 2 dives on the Great Barrier Reef. It's pretty astounding.
The lovely people at Ocean Freedom is the company we worked with, and 70. This boat only took 70. I think we had about 65 on our group, and you really felt the connection. It was there's a great deal of hands-on with staff. You didn't have to be a diver. You could snorkel, and you didn't have to snorkel for that matter. They had a glass-bottom boat. At one point, they take you to a coral cave, so you can actually have your feet on terra firma, and you're looking around. You are on the edge of the continental shelf of Australia. You've got nothing but reef surrounding you. The good report there is the Great Barrier Reef. It's alive and healthy. When we got a chance to see all sorts of.
All these rumors that it was all dead. It was not.
Hello, my goodness me, we saw all sorts of fish. We had turtle we were swimming with, and some amazing fish. I mean, it was just fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
And it was a great experience just that my first day to do this on Great Barrier Reef. And we were staying at a marvelous boutique hotel, the Flynn, which is part of Crystal Brook. And they have 3 hotels in Cairns, and they're all very unique. They all got great restaurants. And so we got to do that. So that was the first day, and what can be better? The next day we went up and did the rainforest.
We did. We went from there. This is where the Great Barrier Reef, which of course is a World Heritage listed reef, and it collides with the Daintree Wilderness Rainforest. Now that again, World Heritage listed. The night before we went to a restaurant. Though, remember the Ochre restaurant?
Yeah, that was one. And I have actually a video that's coming out on that restaurant because it's a sort of Australian cuisine. What is Australian cuisine? Well, you're going to have to watch that video to find out. But it was an amazing restaurant.
Stay tuned because the guy Craig, I used to actually run a restaurant restaurant with Craig back in 1986. We ran a restaurant at the Snow at Mount Buller. And I've been following Craig's progress. This is the only restaurant that I actually go out of my way to promote.
Now, what's the name again? I'm sorry.
It's called the Ochre, the Ochre restaurant. And ochre is actually an indigenous colour of red that's used by Aboriginal people. Now, the food is essentially a whole infusion of Australian Aboriginal food sources. So,
Little kangaroo there.
little kangaroo, we had and it was delightful. I'll just say that off. But yeah, wait till you see James's report on that. I think you'll enjoy. The next day, of course, yes, we had the chance to actually have a very much an indigenous infusion. We actually went up into the Daintree Wilderness Rainforest. We went to a place called Mossman Gorge, and we had the whole smoking ceremony, the welcome to country, which is delightful.
We had an indigenous person who gave us a little presentation, which was, and also welcomed us with the fire and all that.
That was Ben. He had really curly hair, and he was telling us how the hair makes his hair, the tropics make his hair go curly, and it was a character. It was quite the character. We went from there. We met up with Binna. And Binna was an artist.
First, we went up into the rainforest, and like that, we went up to this beautiful stream with rapids, Mossman Gorge. You could have done some swimming up there if you want. Went over some bridges. It's a beautiful, beautiful country, and we went up into the gorges. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Now, that whole day experience, of course, was organised. It was all about it's about kind of immersing yourself and getting to know the local people. And while we were there, we caught up with Binna, and Binna's a local Aboriginal guide, and he's a wonderful artist, bit of a sense of humour too.
Yeah, he's got amazing. He sort of does painting in little dots around, and he taught us a little art.
He did. We all got a chance to have well, I think we did pretty well too as a group. I think our art as a collective.
I wasn't that inspired, but I tried. Believe me.
Let me, Jim. I keep my money in the pocket, mate. I'm not going to buy yours. Let me tell you right now. But
I would buy yours.
I turned out okay. Some experience, I suppose. But then that night, we went back and we tried the Bailey and the CC's restaurant.
Which is a wonderful steakhouse, just a superb steakhouse. It's been recognized and gotten awards. Right?
Absolutely. And what's impressive there, with the Crystal Brook Group, with all their restaurants, they've designed them, or while they're within a hotel, they've designed them as standalone restaurants. So the restaurant scene in Cairns is just buoyed up. And I got to say, it was one of my big takeaways for Cairns this time round. When you think of Cairns, that whole tropical North Queensland, a lot of people think of going further north. And we actually went through an area called Palm Beach with some great accommodations. We also went through Port Douglas as well.
It's lovely.
So it's gorgeous. They're all gorgeous. But now Cairns itself, Crystal Brook, the company itself, has definitely put a new shot in the arm of Cairns. And I can tell you right now that their standard of their accommodation, the quality of the accommodation, because you went and checked out Riley's.
We saw Riley, which is the third hotel, and they have a wonderful bar it's a rooftop bar that's in a same sort of a cylindrical building that has rooms as well. Right?
And gorgeous views. Everything, all these properties though, are so close to the Esplanade. They're right where it's all happening. I think that's
not beaches, but they're right in the Esplanade.
Exactly, yeah. And the Esplanade's just a waterway. There's a lovely swimming pool area at the front. It's close to where all the shops are, all the restaurants. I like the Flynn where we stayed because that one actually folded right out onto the Esplanade and gave a feeling that you were actually a part of the action.
And there's a lot of action.
There's a lot of action going on there. I mean, honestly, I felt like we were there for a week.
It was a great visit, and then of course we got on a flight and flew up on Qantas, and we flew up to Brisbane. Right?
That's right. And Brizzy, I used to live in Brisbane, so it was kind of fun to step in. But it's amazing to see how it's Brisbane itself, like I suggested earlier, it's like a big country town, but it's still it is a major city. I mean that it sits on this river that kind of serpents through the city itself, and access-wise, it's a very walkable city. You've got great access with ferry as well as by foot, and then just. From there, we had a chance to actually meet a lot of local operators. We
went to a coffee place. What was it called?
It's a wine bar.
Wine bar. We did the wine bar and met all these other Australian suppliers, and then we have a marvelous meal there with him. What was it called? What the name is?
It's called it's a City Winery.
City Winery. That's right. And there's an interview with him that you'll be seeing. So that's great to be there. It was an incredible first night in Brisbane. And then the next day, what did we do?
We actually went to Tangalooma.
Yeah, well, actually, before that, I'll just say where we stayed the first night was Adina, which was a lovely thing. It's in a restored building. Yep. It was quite nice, and I interviewed the sales director there.
That's fine. And then the next night, we actually stayed at the Vincent. Vincent's actually another one of the Crystal Brook properties, right. And that was just a magic night. And we had, that, and then we went across to Tangalooma.
Yeah, and Vincent is all art. It's all about it was an amazing stay, and it was a wonderful time in Brisbane. And then we went out, as you said, to Tangalooma, which is on this island, right?
Yeah, So Moreton Island, which is one of it's the second largest sand island in the world, and just a short little 75 minutes across to there, and they had us in helicopters flying up, spotting dugong. ATVs. We went ATVing around the island, and they had planned for us a little bit of dolphin watching, but unfortunately
dolphin watch. I did see some dolphins, but they're supposed to come up right and you can feed them. But that night was a little rough and a little cold. So the dolphins said, no, we're not going to come out.
We had a bit of a barbecue that night and a bit of an Australian shindig. But the beautiful thing about Tangalooma is and much of Brisbane too, was the fact that it's very much patronised by Australians. This is where Aussies go on vacation. And because of that, as Americans, here we are, you want to kind of send your clients to a place where they're going to have this immersive experience. Tangalooma was just full of families, couples, people out there exploring. You can full drive ATV, all sorts of actions. And the other thing too, on sunset, the sun of course is setting in the east, so therefore
beautiful. The sunset
set in the west rather. So we're in the east rather, looking out across the ocean. So it was just delightful.
And it's only an hour by boat from Brisbane.
And I know that we've missed out on something here. We missed out on the koalas that we had.
How could I miss on the koalas? We went to Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary. And that hard to believe I can miss on that one. No, and they take you see the koalas. I actually got to hold a koala, and I interviewed. That's another interview that's coming up, which will be with the koala education person or whatever, right. Marvelous woman. And I didn't know what was to come. And what was to come right after that was we're going to be in this area that's all fenced in that all the kangaroos and the wallabies are, and you give little pellets to them, and they come right up to you, and it's just, I was blown away.
I know you've got some amazing footage there. You've got some great photographs. But for clients that coming to Australia, the only place in Australia that you can actually, the major city that you can actually hold a koala is Queensland in Brisbane, and also Adelaide in South Australia. But Queensland, really Brisbane's like the gateway to Australia's wildlife scene because it sits right on the doorstep of.
It's also not too far from the outback. It's not too far from Queensland and the Great Barrier Reef. It's just a flight away. But that was a marvelous experience that I couldn't believe I forgot about. But then that last day before I had to leave, we did do a wonderful walking tour all around Brisbane, and that was Walk Brisbane, and the guide was fantastic. She owns the company.
Oh, she does a marvelous job, and of course giving great insight. Brisbane itself has just grown up so much, but there's such history, and just walking through the gardens and learning a bit about the buildings. There's so much going on. There's hotels that are popping up.
So
as you mentioned,
I got to tell you, it was a marvelous trip. Anything we've forgotten?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. I will say the Indigenous experience also in Brisbane was.
That was right. We forgot about that. The Indigenous it's not a happy story, but a very important story to tell about how the Aboriginal people were treated even up until the 80s, sadly.
Yeah, so what we've done there with tourism is basically, tourism is a vehicle in which to kind of repair bridges and provide opportunity for some reconciliation. And I think the advent of having the Indigenous experience within Brisbane is something that's opened up the eyes, not only of the Australians, but also people who are coming to Australia. It's something we're very aware of, and it's important. I think it's an important part of the role of travel advisors in promoting destinations. It's all about bringing awareness and therefore bringing change, and that's an important part, I think, of tourism.
This is Australia just having opened up. They were marvelous. They all were very welcoming. Not that they aren't always welcoming, but particularly, people who hadn't seen tourists in a while, like our friend on the dive boat. They had not really had much business, and here we are, and we're travel advisors who are going to hopefully send their clients. I think after this trip, they definitely will.
Yeah, you know what was good? Just going back to that experience on the boat, was the travel advisors that were with us were quick to point out that while we felt we were getting good service, we were being well looked after, they were also very observant of what was happening to the clients on board. And it was interesting to see how every client that went out there, they managed to achieve something perhaps that might have been, well, maybe they didn't expect to be a dive.
Never did.
And then all of a sudden, by the end of it, you're diving. It's like
I'm Diver Dan now. That's it. I'm Patty. I'm not. They don't certify you. But they do say you did a dive. It's the first time in my life, except for maybe a Club Med pool, that I've done that and actually been down in one of the most famous dive areas in the world.
Every person that was on that vessel, no matter what their level of experience was, they managed to achieve something that they hadn't set out to achieve, and I think that makes for a great vacation. It's an experience they'll look back on fondly, as you
Absolutely.
will.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you once again. It was a marvelous trip, and now here we are back in the States trying to remember all this. And again, I would next time you got a next trip, we'll go on the next one.
Absolutely, you're definitely welcome. Let me tell you, and so are you, agents out there. If you're interested in coming travelling away on some of our familiars, by all means, get in contact with Down Under Answers, Africa Answers and Asia Answers, and we'd love to be your answer for your next trip down under.
And what's your URL for the company?
Oh, it's www.duatravel.com.
Fantastic. Jeff, again, thanks very much. I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.